All right, I am back with Ericson's 8 stages of psychosocial development. And again, I have my little flashcards. Um, so I haven't really prepared um, anything in particular to say, so I'm just going off the top of my head using these note cards, and we'll see what happens. So there are 8 stages of psychosocial development according to Erik Erikson. And they basically go throughout the life cycle. And they are trust versus mistrust is the first stage. And I won't just list all of them out. I'll just go through them all and then we'll go from there. But the first stage, again, is trust versus mistrust. And this is from birth to 18 months for a little newborn baby. And this stage is called infancy. And the child develops a sense of trust when given care, affection, and reliability. So this is the infant stage. It's the feeding stage. It's when the child um, develops trust for the parent, particularly the mom. Um, so it's when you have a little baby from birth to 18 months, which is just over a year, about a year and a half. It's a small child, so um, the child may not want to go to someone that he or she does not know, which is normal, of course. And I try to think of these realistically when I was learning these because, I mean, it's really when you just think about a child or a person in whatever age range each stage is, it kind of makes sense. So for a child from birth to 18 months, which is a year and a half, trust versus mistrust, you try to, oh, come here, baby, let me hold you. And the kid is crying and screaming and only wants his mom because he only trusts his mom because he's had that bond made with the mom. And I say the mom primarily because they probably do the same thing with their dad, but the mom is the nurturer. And, it points out that this is the feeding stage, which moms are primarily the feeder. Um, because of breastfeeding, and I know not all people breastfeed and not all moms are the primary feeder, but just in general. So that's the first stage, trust versus mistrust, which is the infancy stage, which covers birth to 18 months. So then you have the second stage, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt. And that is from age 2 to 3. And some people will give you different age ranges to include 2 to 4 or 2 to 5, but I learned it age 2 to 3. And again, that stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. And this is the toilet training stage. Um, and the child develops a sense of control over physical skills and a sense of independency. Success equals autonomy, while failure equals shame and doubt. And so again, this is the toilet training stage. So a child is trying to learn to use the potty between ages 2 and 3, and they have either a sense of autonomy and independence, or they have a sense of shame and doubt. So if they learn how to potty train and they learn how to use the potty on their own, they feel very autonomous and independent. They learn that physical skill, and they feel successful. But if they don't really get it, and you're the parent or the caregiver who's like, oh, come on, you got to learn this. You kind of get frustrated sometimes, I guess. Um, the child feels like a failure because he isn't quite getting it, then he or she may experience shame or doubt about things. And that's not, I guess you could use that not only with potty training but with anything. Um, it says the child develops a sense of control over physical skills. So I mean, even if they're building blocks or something, if they, or putting, well, I won't say putting a puzzle together, that's kind of young for a kid, but a kid age 2 to 3, but like, just doing anything physical, even walking, so that's defined as the early childhood stage. So you have stage 1, which is trust versus mistrust, which is infancy from birth to 18 months. Then you have stage 2, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt, which is early childhood, age 2 to 3. Then you have the preschool age, which is 3 to 5 years old. And this stage is initiative versus guilt, and it's also known as the exploration stage. The child needs control and power over his or her environment. Too much power equals disapproval, which equals guilt. Okay, so again, preschool age, exploration, kids that are 3 to 5 years old are into everything. They want to explore, they want to touch stuff, they want to see stuff, they want to put things in their mouth, they want to go on and on and on. So if they're taking the initiative, doing things on their own, then they feel successful. But if they aren't quite doing things on their own, or if they don't feel like they have the control or the power over their environment, then they may feel guilty. So that's that one. Then you have school age, which is age 6 to 11. Now we're getting on up into, developing your personality and things like that. So school age is, again, age 6 to 11, and it's industry versus inferiority. The child copes with new social and academic demands. Success equals competency, while failure equals inferiority. So, age 6 to 11 is elementary school. Either you're going to be industrious, which is hardworking, or you're going to feel inferior. So if they are industrious and successful, they feel competent at whatever grade level they're in. But if they aren't doing too well in school, they may feel inferior. And so this is where kids start separating as far as academics and socially. It's a very important age, as we all know, especially when you get into those preteen ages. This stage stops at age 11, but again, you can add another age group into that. Some people do. Then you have adolescence, which is ages 12 to 18, and this stage is actually identity versus role confusion, which makes sense because from 12 to 18 you're in middle and high school, so it is a time where you're trying to develop your identity and your role and things like that. So you're developing social relationships and you're placed in groups and things like that. So the teen develops a sense of self and personal / group identity. Success equals staying true to yourself, while failure equals a role confusion or a weak sense of self. So age 12 to 18, you're either going to develop your own identity, your own personality, and if you do, then you're going to be true to yourself. But if you don't, then you're going to have a role confusion. You're going to have a weak sense of self if you can't find a place to fit in. Then you have young adulthood, which is intimacy versus isolation, which is age 19 to 40, and this focuses on building relationships. So the young adult forms intimate, loving relationships with others. Success equals strong relationships, while failure equals loneliness and isolation. And that's, 19 to 40, which is a huge range, but it's when we are trying to develop those intimate relationships with people of interest, um, romantic interests. And if we can't do that, we may feel isolated. So that's what this stage is all about. Then you have middle adulthood, which is from age 40 to 65 years old. And they call this stage generativity versus stagnation. And this is the work and parenthood stage. Adult will create or nurture things that will outlast them. So success equals pride and accomplishment, while failure equals you're unfulfilled or you may feel worthless. So when you're in the age range of 40 to 65, either you have nurtured or created something that will outlast you, whether it's your children, a business, a foundation, anything that will be your legacy. And if you do that, you feel proud and accomplished. But if you don't, you may feel stagnant, or like a failure or worthless. And, think about it. People in their 40s to 60s, if they don't have kids, people who are in their 40s, early 40s, still trying to have kids and they haven't, maybe they feel worthless or like they haven't accomplished being a mom or being a dad, or they may feel unfulfilled, like, they may regret not having kids while they were younger. But then you have people who are successful and they're proud of their accomplishments. And then the last stage is late adulthood, which we define as ego integrity versus despair. And that's from age 65 to death. And that's a reflection on life. So the older adult will look back on life and feel fulfillment. Success equals wisdom, while failure equals regret, guilt, and despair. So that's the end of life, 65 until death, the end of life. So you start to reflect on your life, like, what did I do while I was here? What did I contribute to society and to the world? Was I a good person? What could I have done differently, that kind of thing. And so if you were successful, or if you see yourself as being successful in life, then you may feel like you're wise. Older people, 65 and older, they have a lot of wisdom. They've lived life. They've experienced a lot of things. But if you see yourself as a failure, then you may have some regrets about your life, or you may feel some guilt and remorse about some things that happen in your life, and you just may feel despair. So those are the 8 stages of psychosocial development by Ericson, and I'm just going to list them once again. They are stage 1, trust versus mistrust, which is birth to 18 months. Stage 2 is autonomy versus shame and doubt, which is age 2 to 3. Stage 3 is initiative versus guilt, which is age 4 to 5. Then you have stage 4, which is industry versus inferiority, which is age 6 to 11. And you have stage 5, which is identity versus role confusion, age 12 to 18. Stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation, which is age 20 to 35. Stage 7 is generativity versus stagnation, which is age 35 to 50. Stage 8 is ego integrity versus despair, which is 50 plus. And I know those numbers were not the same that I gave you, but again, they list them with different age groups. So whichever way helps you remember them better. If you have any questions about anything, let me know and I'll be glad to answer them. See you next time.